Princess Kartik of Athralita calls on her butler Lit to prepare a horse for her, as she has changed her mind about leaving to see a play. To her surprise, Lit informs her that the horse has already been prepared. Kartik prefers to ride her dear horse, Catherine, which Lit has also prepared in advance. He's also made several other preparations including drinks, refreshments, accompanying nobility, and bodyguards. Kartik is impressed. Perhaps out of spite or to mess with him, Kartik claims that she has changed her mind. She wants to go fishing instead. This means she doesn't want to ride Catherine today. Similarly, all of Lit's hard work goes down the drain. Kartik adds more and more work to Lit's plate, all of which comes with an unreasonable deadline. Lit remains undeterred. He'll fulfill any desire she has. It is his job as her butler. With a proud gait and a long stride, Lit walks down the hall and returns to his room. He locks the door and screams from the top of his lungs. Kartik has been making hundreds of unreasonable and elaborate demands and adding more while he's doing them. Lit can't take it anymore. He wants to leave. It's been several years since Lit joined the estate's large servant workforce. It was a normal job at first, but before he knew it, he began to handle more and more work that was beyond his job description. He's even assassinated a few people here and there under Kartik's orders. At this rate, Lit's body will give out. Humans were not built to withstand this much pressure. Lit's only choice is to run, but he doubts that Kartik will allow him to escape that easily. He needs to escape somewhere where Kartik won't be able to touch him. He decides to flee to the neighboring Gardal Empire, the Athralita Kingdom's bitter rival. What he loves about Gardal is their strict adherence to meritocracy. He's certain that not even Kartik's far-reaching influence would let her reach him there. Lit has picked up a slew of skills from his time as a butler, and he's certain that he'll be able to pick up at least one job. Lit exits his room. He knows that Kartik just left on her fishing trip, which means that this is the perfect opportunity for him to escape. Since leaving the royal palace is forbidden, Lit has to sneak out and pass the extreme security measures. Lit walks out with absolutely no issues. He didn't think it would be this easy. What happened to all the security measures? It turns out that Beck, the head of security, is a lazy fellow who slacks off on all his work. Not even Beck's direct subordinates know where he is. This means that if a threat or intruder were to show up, Lit would be the one who would have to deal with it. Lit realizes that if he leaves, that would mean that palace security would be in shambles. He feels a bit bad about leaving them like this, but when he thinks about Kartik, all those bad feelings disappear. It's time for him to flee to the Gardal Empire. Lit has very little idea of how things will turn out, but he's just excited to see what tomorrow holds. More importantly, he's excited not to serve Kartik when tomorrow comes. After a long journey, Lit arrives at Gallister, the imperial capital of Gardal. He overhears an adventurer, Avin, trying to convince a guard to write him a referral letter for a local vocational school. Lit has heard of these so-called vocational schools, which practically guarantee you graduate with an important and valuable trade skill. Lit approaches them and asks for a referral letter as well. Avin asks him who he is, and Lit adopts the low-effort alias name, Lilt. Lilt claims that he is a traveler training to become a warrior, but Avin finds that hard to believe. The guard tells Lilt that he can't simply write him a referral letter. Vocational schools are crucial for the Gardal Empire to pump out skilled experts. The entry barrier is high, and in order to receive a referral, you have to be talented enough to deserve one. The guard asks if either of them have any achievements to prove that they're worth the letter. Lilt recalls winning a martial arts tournament in Athralita, but only because Kartik threatened him with it. However, he can't cite that instance as he is hiding his identity. Avin draws his sword and suggests that he fight Lilt. It should be fine, since Lilt also claims to be a warrior. Whoever wins will earn the referral letter. Lilt has no problem with those terms, and Avin is impressed that he did. Lilt throws off his cloak and accepts his challenge. They find an empty field to fight it out. The guard sanctions this as a duel in accordance with the Empire's laws and his authority as the Imperial Capital's gate guard. Avin whips out his massive black blade. Lilt puts up his arms. He can tell from Avin's physique that he's an experienced veteran. This fight won't be easy. Avin attacks first. He swings his hunk of iron and smashes the ground. Lilt avoids it, but barely. Even if he dodged it completely, the shockwave was enough to tear some threads on his tailored suit. Lilt observes that Avin isn't even using strengthening magic. This is his raw physical strength. Avin prepares his sword and continues his assault. Avin unleashes a barrage of heavy blows, but Lilt dodges them all within a hair's breadth. Avin starts getting frustrated that none of his attacks are hitting. He taunts Lilt, saying that unless he attacks, he won't be able to win. Lilt has been waiting for an opening the entire time. Lilt ducks underneath Avin's sword, knocks away his arm, and unleashes a barrage of accurate thrusts aimed at vital points. To finish him off, Lilt's palm strikes his chin, which disarms Avin and awards Lilt possession of his blade. He uses it to stab at Avin, but only at the ground next to him. The gate guard declares that the duel is over. Lilt straightens himself up, fixes his tie, and reverts to his usual butler dialogue. It's a force of habit. Avin accepts his defeat gracefully. It's not every day that the famous Black Blade Avin is knocked off his feet like this. He wonders where someone as skilled as Lilt has been hiding all this time. Lilt nervous laughs. The guard finally recognizes Avin's name. It turns out that Avin is a famous adventurer, known for defeating 20 bandits on his own and beating a gorilla in a wrestling match. His accomplishments are already well known. He offers to issue him a referral letter as well, despite the results of their duel. Avin asks Lilt if he's okay with that, as it would mean that their duel was pointless. Lilt doesn't mind. He experienced firsthand how powerful Avin was. He'd most definitely be dead if he didn't avoid his attacks. In that case, the guard issues both Avin and Lilt referral letters so that they may attend the Empire's vocational school. Lilt has passed the first test of becoming a citizen of the Garble Empire. He wonders what Kirik is doing right now. Knowing her, she must be lashing out at the other servants. Lilt decides that it isn't his problem anymore. He wants to live his life for himself, and not for someone else's sake. Kirik is absolutely livid. She viciously reprimands two servants for serving her tea that is not up to her standard. She doesn't understand why they didn't sweeten it according to her current mood, which they cannot possibly predict. The two servants respectfully explain that they'd never done something like that. Lilt was the only one who took her feelings into consideration. Kirik snaps at them to clean up the mess and serve her a fresh cup. Kirik is greatly annoyed. It's been days since Lilt left her household, and her remaining servants have shown themselves to be completely incompetent in her eyes. They can barely keep up with the orders she gives them. She's furious that Lilt abandoned his duties, and she wonders what she could possibly be doing right now. Right now, Lilt is cramming for his vocational school entrance exam. Avin can't fathom why he's even attempting it. The problem is that the vocational school entrance exam is only a week away. Even if they have a referral letter, they still have to actually take the exam to be admitted. The exam takes place only twice a year, and they must pass both a written exam and a practical exam to test their battle skills. Since Lilt is a foreigner, he knows very little about the Garble Empire, which the exam is sure to test him on. Avin estimates that a large portion of the written exam will be about the Empire. Avin remarks that they were just unlucky, but they at least have 6 months to prepare for the second exam. Lilt, however, has crammed in the past. If it's just a week away, that's more than enough time for him to study everything about the Garble Empire. Avin thought he was joking, but Lilt was actually dead serious. Lilt is in a hurry because he never knows if something might happen in the Afterleda Kingdom, which is why he wants to be a citizen right away. However, he's curious why someone as accomplished as Avin wants to take this exam in the first place. Avin explains that he wants the stability offered by a government posting, as opposed to the contract-based work that adventurers do. Lilt is surprised that Avin has thought this far ahead. He thought that he was nothing but a brawny meathead. Avin can sense that he's thinking about something rude. A few days later, Lilt and Avin travel to the Imperial Vocational School for the entrance exam. Lilt feels rather disappointed in himself for only reading 70% of the books in the library. Avin can't believe that he managed to do it without skimming at all. Lilt is confident that he could have read through the entire library if he had 3 more days. Avin tries to cheer him up. They are thrust into a sea of people, all of whom are from different races and social backgrounds. Because Garble is a meritocracy, they attract all sorts of aspiring and promising individuals, from the poor to the rich, like the Imperial Princess. An ornate carriage halts and outsteps the Empire's second princess, Melia. Her pale skin and beautiful hair make her a beautiful sight to behold. Lilt doesn't recall Kirik ever carrying herself with the same level of grace, but she certainly had her own unique style. He muses that had Kirik been more similar to Melia, she would have been more tolerable to serve. As Lilt begins to walk away, Barda of the Murdo family enters the scene, hoping to curry favor with the great princess. Barda's men clear a path through the other examinees. Barda is the type of person that Lilt doesn't want to involve himself with. Barda's men push and shove people so that he can have a wider walkway. Nevertheless, he bumps into a young girl, which causes her to trip and spill some liquid all over his shirt, ruining it. Lilt and Avin can no longer turn a blind eye. The mood has gotten tense. Barda demands that the little girl compensate him for the damage to his clothes, and he threatens her with a magic wand. Avin is appalled that a grown man would pull a deadly weapon on a little girl. Barda exclaims that his coat is worth more money than the little girl could ever dream of. Lilt can tell the clothes aren't that expensive, but the fact remains that this situation could spiral out of control. The little girl apologizes, but she says out loud that Barda's clothes aren't even that expensive. This provokes Barda, and he attacks her with his ice magic. Lilt and Avin leap into action, but they can tell that no matter how fast they are, they won't make it in time. Their help, it seems, is not needed. The girl uses her own magic to repel Barda's ice magic and redirect it elsewhere. However, she unintentionally sends it into the crowd, and the magic is on a collision course with Melia. The little girl tries to warn the princess to get out of the way. When Lilt hears the word princess, his body moves on its own. He practically flies through the crowd in the blink of an eye. And just as Barda's ice bolt is about to connect with Melia, Lilt jumps in and knocks it away, saving her life. Lilt then stops his momentum using a bit of magic from his palm, adjusts his tie, fixes his hair, and checks if Melia is okay. This whole sequence goes incredibly well. The observing crowd erupts in applause. How in the world did Lilt even make it all the way over to the princess in such a short amount of time? Lilt sighs. His body is still ultra-responsive to the word princess. He thought he left such things behind him. Melia properly thanks Lilt for saving her. In an almost unprecedented move, Melia lowers her head to thank him. While Lilt is flattered, he does not want to attract unwanted attention to himself. He exchanges a few kind words with Melia while he secretly prepares a magic spell. He disappears in an instant and reappears next to Avin. Avin isn't an idiot. He can clearly see that Lilt is nothing short of incredible. Lilt wants to drop the subject already, and he drags Avin with him into the exam hall. Barda is humiliated in front of the crowd, and he glares at Lilt as he retreats into the exam room. Lilt and Avin enter the exam venue. Their proctor is none other than Jian, a major general in the Imperial Army. She explains that the exam will run for 3 hours, and other than that, it is a rather standard written test. As always, cheating is strictly prohibited, and she warns them against using magic of any kind. They must pass solely on what they have learned. Barda does not intend to play fair. He has set up telepathy magic between himself and his 2 lackeys so that they can share answers in the middle of the exam. He reassures them that they will not be caught. There's no way they can possibly fail with 3 brains working on 1 test. Lilt can easily sense their magic, but he chooses not to say anything. Without further ado, Jian begins the exam. Lilt puts his game face on. He's studied a wide range of topics, including the arts, law, history, philosophy, and the like. The first question could be disastrous. The first question asks him what the capital of Gardel is. Lilt does a double take before answering it rather easily. 3 hours later, Jian stops the clock. Their time is up. It was just as difficult as Lilt expected it to be. Avin comes by to check on Lilt. Lilt remarks that he isn't sure he passed, as he was a little thrown off by how easy the first few questions were. The final question regarding military strategy was what really caused difficulty for him. Avin looks at him with a blank face. Lilt couldn't possibly be implying that he answered the entire test. That's exactly what Lilt did. Avin exclaims that answering just half of the questions is usually enough to pass the exam. Apparently, you only need to score 30% of the exam to pass, which means you'd only need to answer a little over half of the test at most. Lilt was so focused on studying for the exam that he didn't bother to read anything about the exam itself. Regardless, Avin is confident that Lilt can conquer the practical part of the exam without a hitch. However, before they leave, Jian approaches Lilt and asks him if the exam he submitted was his own work. She somehow already checked his 3-hour-long test paper. Not only did he attempt every single question, but he also got all of them correct. She doubts that even she could have found a better solution for the final question. Due to how perfect this exam was, she wants to ensure he didn't use any magic. This means that Lilt is being suspected of cheating. Avin whispers to Lilt that his little ego chal has landed him in hot water. Lilt knows it'd be hard to prove he didn't use magic. However, Barda and his lackeys enter the room, and he claims that he witnessed Lilt using magic with his own eyes. Avin asks Barda if he's calling Lilt a liar. Barda certainly isn't calling him a truther. He claims he and his men saw Lilt cheating. Jian prevents Avin from escalating the situation. She'd love to hear what proof Barda has to show that Lilt cheated. Barda clears his throat. He points out that Jian remarked that perfectly answering the exam would be impossible. Jian notes that Barda has a point. The test was not designed for anyone to perfectly answer it, but she knows that it isn't impossible. She reveals that a perfect exam is not unprecedented. There have been a few cases of perfect exams in the past, and those individuals have gone on to become great heroes and figures. She finds it rather unbecoming and premature for Barda to openly claim that Lilt was cheating. Jian gives Barda an opportunity to withdraw his accusation, and Barda refuses. Jian is thus forced to ask Lilt to join her, so she can conduct a thorough investigation. However, Princess Melia herself enters the room. She has something to add, and Jin readily listens to her words. Melia swears upon her royal name that Lilt is innocent. This catches them all off guard, especially Barda. Barda asks her to reconsider, and Melia simply glares at him and asks him if he has a problem. Barda reasserts that Lilt used magic to cheat, but Melia is already well aware of his accusation. Jin convinces Barda to calm down. Melia reveals why she knows Lilt didn't cheat. It's because Barda was the one she caught cheating. She points to her eye, which shimmers with detection magic. As it turns out, Melia is a skilled magician, which is why she was tapped to serve as an anti-cheating measure for the exam. In the first place, someone of her talents and pedigree is exempt from taking the entrance exam. It should have been a no-brainer to them that she didn't exactly belong there. Barda fights tooth and nail to try and deflect blame away from himself, but Melia stands firm. She knows what she saw. Barda panics, and he can't talk his way out of it. Melia declares that he and his 2 associates have cheated, and she disqualifies him from the exam. Barda's men start sweating bullets. Barda himself remains silent for a while before suddenly exploding. He exclaims that these cheating allegations are not but false. He's confident that Lilt cheated somehow, and Barda feels compelled to prove it. He wants to prove himself beyond a shadow of a doubt, and he challenges Lilt to a duel. Barda's men are taken aback, but he's made up his mind. He'll do whatever it takes to get these charges dropped. Lilt realizes that the situation has become twice as serious as before. The duel is a traditional competition between nobles to settle their disputes. It is a test of pure compatibility and a means to maintain the balance of power within a highly militarized state. However, that's only what Lilt learned about from the history books. Melia tells him that there is a reason for this. Public duels have not been common in over a century since gambling over them became a prevalent problem. Added laws and measures thus caused a decline in dueling. Furthermore, duels are traditionally between nobles only, so a duel between Barda and Lilt is ridiculous to say the least. Melia criticizes Barda for even suggesting this, but Barda doesn't care. He doesn't care about the history behind it. What matters to him is that the most important part of a duel is that both parties consent to it. He points a finger at Lilt and demands that he accept his duel, and he offers to withdraw his accusation if Lilt wins. However, if Barda wins, he wants Lilt to admit that he cheated and to leave the country. Everyone can tell that this deal makes enough sense. No one would be insane enough to accept such unfair terms. Lilt is insane enough, and he accepted Barda's terms. Avin tells Lilt that he's crazy for going along with Barda's whims like this. Duels might be old, but they are taken very seriously. He'd be in serious trouble if he lost. Lilt understands the gravity of the situation, but as the person standing accused, he believes that he has the right to clean up the mess himself. Melia asks him if he is absolutely sure he wants to push through with this. Lilt replies that he didn't accept this duel with the intent to lose. Jin respects Lilt's decision in opposition to Melia's protest. However, Jin will not have them fight to the death inside this classroom. She wants the victor to be easily distinguishable, so she has an idea of how to settle things. She suggests using the upcoming practical exam as the stage for their duel, which catches them all off guard. However, Melia realizes that the practical exam's current format would be perfect. This would also help them go around the usual dueling formalities and scheduling issues. It'd be very efficient indeed. Lilt agrees to the terms, and so does Barda. Thus, about half an hour later, the second phase of the vocational exam begins. Lilt faces off against Barda, while Avin and other examinees battle against their own opponents. Jin goes over the rules, which are very simple. The examinees will fight a one-on-one match with a time limit of 20 minutes. They will fight within a designated area fenced off with a magical barrier, while teachers are on standby to supervise them. Barda revels in the stage of their battle. With such a large audience, he exclaims that there will be no room for cheating. Barda admits that he's hated Lilt since the moment he laid eyes on him. It was hate at first sight. Jin makes sure that all the examinees are ready, then she begins their respective matches. Barda makes the first move. He summons a large row of ice crystals, which Lilt admits is quite a fancy spell. Barda unleashes his ice flow directly at Lilt, but he misses by a mile. Lilt just stands there, confused. Undeterred, Barda summons several more ice flow spells, but all of them also miss. Lilt stands there awkwardly. Maybe he should have let himself get hit on purpose to make Barda feel better. Barda pretends that Lilt is somehow managing to dodge all his attacks. Lilt doesn't have the heart to tell him that he's standing perfectly still, and that Barda is the one missing everything. Barda believes that he's displayed enough magic power, and he encourages Lilt to surrender. Lilt stands unimpressed, and quite frankly, a little sleepy. Barda assumes he's too scared to fight. He uses his ultimate secret technique, Frozen Lotus. Jin calls Lilt's name and encourages him to end this joke of a duel. Before Barda can unleash his spell, Lilt teleports behind him and chops him in the back of the neck. Barda falls to his knees and goes unconscious immediately. Jin sighs. The match is finally at an end, and she declares Lilt the victor. She never doubted him for a second. Usually, depending on the results, both students can pass the practical exam. But in this case, Barda has failed to meet her standards. Jin shakes Lilt's hand and recognizes his efforts and innocence. Avin notices that Lilt has won, which he takes as his cue to wrap up his own battle. Meanwhile, Kirik learns from one of her spies where Lilt has gone. She's found him. Kirik first met Lilt 10 years ago. She and her family visited an orphanage for a charity event. Lilt, from the very beginning, was a very helpful and earnest young boy. Breen, Kirik's head butler at the time, remarks on how diligently Lilt works. The orphanage caretaker admits that she's been feeling more and more like Lilt's assistant these days. In fact, Lilt takes care of virtually every chore in the household, including laundry, cooking, gardening, and general care. The tea that Breen and Kirik had that morning was personally brewed by Lilt as well. Kirik leaves them to have some fun on her own. She encounters Lilt in the kitchen, putting away dishes in the cupboard. Lilt notices her, climbs down from the stepladder, and offers to accompany her around the orphanage. That isn't what Kirik wants. She notices Lilt's clothes dirted and stained with dirt, and he explains that he was cleaning up the kitchen when she entered. Kirik asks Lilt why he does all the work, and if someone is blackmailing him into doing so. Lilt explains that he's just trying to help out, and he isn't being blackmailed or currying favor with anyone. He tells her that helping out just feels good. Kirik doesn't really get his reasoning. In the first place, cleaning and doing chores is a maid's job. If Kirik doesn't have to do something, she'd rather not do it. Kirik nervously explains that if he doesn't do it, then there will be problems. Kirik agrees, but she points out that his work should be handled by adults. Adults are meant to look after children, take care of them, and raise them to be proper adults. Children should be playing or doing childlike things. Kirik sees something seriously wrong with how Lilt is single-handedly running the orphanage on his own. He doesn't fully understand her thought process, but he admires the way that she thinks. Kirik hisses at him to stay away. Lilt apologizes and backs off. He tries to think of an answer to Kirik's questions, and he explains that a long time ago, someone told him to be kind. He was taught that being considerate and mindful of others would also bring him happiness. He doesn't even remember who told him that anymore, but he's never forgotten those words. This is why he always wants to help at the orphanage. Kirik hears what Lilt is saying, but it isn't registering in her brain. She finds Lilt's overeagerness to help and people-pleasing personality rather pitiful. Something about him flips a switch inside her. She doesn't hate him, but it's something else. Breen bursts into the kitchen after looking all over for Kirik. When he finally finds her, he is overjoyed. He was deeply worried that she had disappeared. Breen notices Lilt standing nearby, and he tightly grips his shoulder. He asks the little boy what exactly he was doing in this isolated room with the princess. Before he can interrogate the scared little child any further, Kirik declares that they will bring Lilt with them back to the castle. She understands that Lilt likes helping people, and he gets off on being praised for doing so. To her, the next step is simple. She wants Lilt to devote himself to her, and only her, with all his heart. Lilt feels reluctant to accept her invitation, but when his caretaker gives him the all green, he decides to accept. He promises to serve her in the palace from now on, to the best of his ability. That's the kind of answer that Kirik wants to hear. Kirik instructs Breen to give Lilt a brief overview of his duties. She thinks of what Kirik can do, and she asks him to greet her in the mornings and comb her hair, among other things. Back in the present, Kirik wakes up in her dreadfully quiet room. She pushes back her bed curtains and sees that Lilt is nowhere to be found. She rubs her eyes and swears to bring him back. Lilt wakes up and sees that Avin was already awake an hour beforehand. Avin can tell that Lilt thought that he was the type of sloppy person to wake up late. While it may be surprising, Avin is actually a diligent morning person, owing to his years' experience as an adventurer. In fact, he's the one who's surprised that Lilt woke up so late. Lilt had a dream of him meeting Kirik for the first time. He doesn't know why he had that dream. It's been a month since he left the kingdom of Athralita, but he still seems to have lingering feelings for his old home. Avin tells him not to stress out too much. He tosses him his uniform. It's their first day at the Empire's vocational school. Lilt throws on his jacket. It's time for him to begin his new life as a student. Avin fastens his bandana around his forehead. It's his new life too. They both want to make the most of it. They arrive at their appointed class and prepare to take their seats. To Lilt's surprise, Melia is also in the same class as them. They've been interacting over the past few weeks to finalize some documents related to the school. Lilt asks her why she's here and why she's wearing the uniform of their officer class. Melia explains that she's also a student here, so it would be normal for her to wear it. It's hard for Lilt not to be surprised to see her. It's also hard for him to accept that someone like Melia is wearing the same uniform as them. Melia laughs. She didn't come here just to surprise him. The Empire of Gardel is currently at war with the Republic of Celestia to the south. Melia will be involved in the war effort sooner or later, so she wants to learn as much as she can by attending a vocational school. There's no better place to get first-hand experience. Lilt sees the wisdom in her decision, but he's anxious due to being on her observational radar. This isn't surprising given how much Lilt has been standing out, despite his efforts not to stand out. However, Melia's presence is also a good thing. Lilt hopes he can hide in her shadow and let her take all the attention. He just wants to live out his life here in peace and quiet, so as not to reveal his location to Kirit and her agents. Melia finally catches Lilt's attention after being lost in thought. Lilt instinctively flies back, and he smacks into Avin with a thud. Melia repeats what she was saying before Lilt zoned out. Now that they're wearing the same uniform and attending the same class, they'll be on equal footing. She requests that Lilt call her Melia without the honorific princess. Lilt can't bring himself to say that. Suddenly, one of their classmates comes to pay his respects to Princess Melia. He introduces himself as Jik von Karam, the first child of the Count Karam family. He is pleased to make her acquaintance. Melia, likewise, returns his polite gesture. Avin is impressed at how polite and professional Jik was. It's a large contrast to how they interacted with Barda before. Lilt finds the names Jik and von Karam quite familiar. It appears that Jik is very familiar with who Lilt is. Lilt wonders if it's just his imagination, but it isn't. Jik is staring so hard at him that he could punch a hole through his chest. Lilt has his suspicions about why Jik is staring at him like this. It's because of Melia. He guesses that Jik must be angry at him due to his being friendly with the princess. Melia, clueless to the hostility between them, introduces Jik to Lilt. She boasts that Lilt excels in both mind and practical arts, and that he passed the exam with flying colors. Jik does his best to remain calm and civil. It's taking him a lot of restraint. Melia doesn't miss the curtness in Jik's voice, and she asks him if they know each other. Lilt doesn't think that he knows Jik, but it might be possible that they've met before. He remembers that the Karam family possesses a large territory within the kingdom. He also recalls a certain banquet wherein he must have met the young Jik while he was accompanying Princess Kirik. He's worried that Jik remembers who he is and that he was Kirik's butler. Lilt is worried that his past might be exposed. It wouldn't be hard to draw conclusions from Lilt's current circumstances. From Jik's point of view, it would be easy to assume that Lilt's actions are suspicious. Why would someone from a rival country come to Gardel? It's not impossible to think of Lilt as a spy. Even so, Lilt thinks that it would be unlikely that Jik remembers him from so long ago, but he needs a way to confirm it. As soon as Jik opens his mouth, Lilt knows for a fact that Jik still remembers him. Regardless, Jik offers his hand to Lilt so they can shake hands at their first meeting. As soon as Lilt gives his hand, he notices a hint of magic emanating from Jik's hand. When their hands meet, Jik tries to harm Lilt with a pulse of magic. Avin hears the sound as clear as day. Jik is annoyed that his attempt to harm Lilt failed. Lilt is glad he was able to defend against it. If he hadn't, he'd be charred black. Just as Lilt expected, Jik is willing to attack him. If this is how he is, he'll be a very annoying person to deal with. As Jik takes his leave, Avin grabs his shoulder. He demands that Jik explain the strange sound he heard earlier. Avin knows he did something. Jik plays dumb. Avin is just accusing him with no proof. Melia asks Avin what he means, and he explains that he sensed both magic and hostility from Jik when he shook Lilt's hand. It's his adventurer's intuition speaking to him. Melia asks Jik what he thinks, and Jik retorts that this is nothing more than a baseless accusation. Lilt tries to say that he's fine with it, but Avin asserts that he isn't. He wants to have a serious conversation with Jik. Before the situation can escalate any further, a small girl scolds them for being too noisy in her class. Lilt is surprised that he didn't even notice her approaching them. The girl introduces herself as Iris, their magic instructor. She tells them all to take their seats. It's time for them to start some magic exercises. As Lilt and the others take their seats, Iris introduces herself again. She is a first-class court magician with a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary magic studies, as well as a lieutenant colonel in the Imperial Magic Corps. That's all she has to say. She goes right ahead into their lesson. Their first class is practical magic exercises. She wants them to use their magic until they can't use it anymore. The point is to get used to using magic as though it were an extension of themselves. They're already aware some of them can use magic, which is why their practical exam is built to weed out those who just aren't good at it. Still, she acknowledges that there are those who pass the practical exam using physical strength. Even so, they must go through this lesson. She slams her staff to the ground and summons a single St. Quartz in front of each student. Avin and Jik fiddle with the stone out of curiosity. Iris explains that these are not ordinary stones. They are masses of stones that contain her magical power. The exterior shell acts as an insulator, while her magic makes up the core of it. When magic is used against it, the inner core will light up. However, if they haphazardly throw around their magic without thinking, it will simply bounce off the stone's insulator shell. Their assignment for today will be to make the magic stone glow. But that's not all. They also have to solve Iris' fun math problems, which she made herself. Lilt finds it hard to believe that the book is just a bunch of math problems. He has a bad feeling about this. Iris reassures them that the math problems aren't difficult and are mostly basic arithmetic. Their primary goal is to keep the magic stone shining while being distracted with math problems. She doesn't care if they get the math problems wrong either. They will only be penalized if the light in their magic stone goes out. She wants them to hone their concentration. She gives them 4 to 5 minutes, and they will be evaluated based on the number of correct answers they make until the light in their magic stone goes off. Without further ado, she begins the exam. Lilt flips open the page and finds a photo of Major General Jian going commando. Lilt knew there was going to be something outrageous, but he didn't think it would be like this. Lilt looks around the classroom. Some of his classmates were a little shaken up, but their concentration did not waver. Avin is the exception. His stone has already gone dark. Lilt looks at him like he's looking at dirt. Avin defends himself by stating that it would be more disrespectful if he didn't react to seeing Jian bearing it all like that. Iris notices that Avin has already dropped out of the practice exam. Avin admits that he fell for it, but he points out that using Jian's photo like this is bad for public morals. Iris reassures him that she already had Jian's permission to use her photo. In her own words, Jian offered to show as much skin as she wanted. Regardless of the reasoning behind the photo, the fact remains that Avin failed. Thus, there must be a corresponding penalty. Avin's stone begins overflowing with magical energy. Iris reassures the class that the penalty will not seriously affect their health or their lives. She explains that the stone glows due to her magic and their magic mixing together. If they fail to supply their magic properly, then the internal balance will be disrupted. Avin's stone explodes, leaving him completely naked. Avin's first question is directed at his lack of clothes. Iris asks Avin to leave. He's more unsightly than she anticipated. Iris tells them that there are a variety of penalties, so they'll just have to be ready for them. They have no room to relax. Iris reminds them that the test is still ongoing. She wonders if there are some of them who would rather take off their clothes voluntarily. Lilt seriously misjudged Iris. In more ways than one, this practice test is more dangerous than the school's entrance exam.